Welcome back to The Whole Picture, where we chat with your favorite entrepreneurs and talk to them about deep passions, hobbies, and interests that keep them in the game for the long term. Today, we are with Chris Creed, who is a motivation coach. He's worked with several multi-million-dollar companies, helping them with their marketing and their tech. He also is an EFT coach and has done all kinds of really cool stuff. So I'm excited to get into this. Welcome, Chris Creed.
Hey, thank you so much, Brittany. This is awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I mentioned just a couple of different things here. You have this
Hmm.
marketing and tech side to you, but you also have EFT, which
Yeah.
is emotional freedom tapping, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So those are two are already right out of the gate. We got two
Yeah.
different kind of things going on. So tell me about your journey into EFT.
Yeah. So I'll tell a brief story. So I used to coach people on events and help them launch events, live events in person. And during COVID, I helped a lot of people launch virtual events. And like dozens of entrepreneurs I worked with, and we would build this whole strategy out, we would build the whole presentation out, and then it would come to a point where I would watch them and I'm all excited, and then I watch them present, and then I talk to them afterwards, and they're just freaking out. Like they say, "Oh my gosh, I just freaked out. Like I just couldn't do it." And I paused, like, and then they get stuck in this space. And I watched people over and over and over again hit this wall, and I was like, what is going on here? Like there's something stopping people, right? And so I had done some like therapy work with on myself with the what's the tapping things, the little EMDR, I think it's
Oh
called.
yeah.
Yeah, super powerful. And so I kind of experienced some of that deep work, you know what I mean? To uncover some stuff. And I had also been introduced to the idea of tapping. And I had like fast forward, I realized that like there were certain things you could do that were really powerful and quick to help you move through stuff as it comes up. And there's several other ideas I was introduced to and that kind of taught me more about this, but it became clear to me that there was stuff in the way for people that, and including me, like that might not even see, right? That are these mysterious problems, and we talked about that earlier. But it's it became really clear to me that there was something stopping people that they couldn't see, and so I. It wasn't lack of strategy that like they knew everything. It wasn't lack of like having the right script or having the right details. They knew everything. There was just this thing that would come up that would kind of steal their power from them. And so I was just looking for modalities for myself. Like, what do I do or what do I want to be doing on a regular basis that keeps me in my power and my purpose so that I can show up the way I want to when I have to? And that was really the impetus for it, is like, how do I connect these two worlds? Because there's definitely something to this mind body connection piece that, and a lot of people, Brittany, who just haven't done any sort of work, and that maybe they know that like, oh, okay, like maybe some childhood stuff that I had, but like, dude, no, there's like, we're bombarded with stuff all the time, right? Like 11 million pieces of data every minute or something, and all that stuff goes in, but our minds can only process like 50 of those things. So where's all the rest of the stuff go? Well, it gets stuck, right? And it gets lodged in there. And a lot of times it will stop you without your knowledge from doing the thing that you really want to do. And so you ever feel like, well, I don't like, I know that I should be doing this thing. I know that I should be progressing in this way. I know, but I feel stuck. There's a reason why. And we can actually do things to move that through. And that's where the tapping came into play. So yeah.
I'm so curious, because there's like two responses to that, right? Like so someone is feeling some kind of way, and I have been in this world for a while, so I've experienced that. And I noticed that at first, my inclination was to keep it cerebral and keep it up here and try to solve the problem of feeling triggered or stuck or whatever with more thinking
Yeah.
and with the same platform that I was using. Like, I just need to do more public speaking. Like, I just need to do it more. And obviously, we know that that is essentially like running your head into a wall. But I'm curious, like, what led you to think, okay, this is a problem and I'm going to solve it going the opposite direction, like going into the body versus into the
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it was being aware of like the idea of like somatic work, things like that your body holds on to stuff, like the body keeps the score idea. Like that stuff is there, man. So like I was aware of that idea. And that was kind of the impetus of it. But I'll tell you what, and we could talk about this later, and I'm not ready to get into jujitsu yet. I don't think, I mean, it's not really relevant here, but it is in this sense because when I first started training jujitsu, and if you guys have never done that, it's a grappling art, right? So like you're going like you're just like basically hugging someone for 5 minutes at a time, right? Which is crazy, but you're moving your body, you're sweating like it is impossible not to be in your body. You can't think about anything else or somebody's trying to kill you. So you have to just be present in your body. And I noticed after the first couple of days, I would come home and sometimes like big stuff, like big stuff would come up, or like I could feel like something moved through. And I was, this is really interesting because I never had my body in that deep of a connective space before. And that was another signal for me that like, oh, something's going on here. So like um if I go in and train, it's more it's not just about learning that skill, it's also there's something else happening that's deeper that I can't see, that's helping me move through stuff. And I think that's where that somatic stuff comes from. And a lot of people, nobody talks about this in the jiu-jitsu community really, but like that's a big piece of it, I think, is like, it doesn't replace therapy or something like that if if you're moving through like some big stuff, but just getting stuff out of your body like that can really help. And that's where the connection came from for me, is that I can't think my way out of this problem as much as I want to. Like you said, I think there's certain things that it's not even necessarily a problem. It's just that your mind is telling you it's a problem because it is literally trying to protect you from something that it thinks is there, a perceived fear. And you're familiar with Myron Golden. He says this thing. He says that anxiety is wasting present energy on a future outcome that's undesirable to me. And then he says that fear is caution over a real and present danger, meaning that like there's actually something there that's going to like harm you or whatever. Like you have to do that. That's fear. But anxiety is just imagining the fear of that something's there, right? And so that's what I that's what I'm getting at there, is that there's something in the way inside. It's actually inside that you can move to help you, be free of that feeling.
I I remember when I learned all of this, and it was such a light bulb moment for me. I had just really crippling back pain one day, like out of nowhere. And someone recommended Body Keeps the Score. They recommended, they were talking about TMS, which is like your muscle stores, these things. And the location of it told them something. And I was like, what is this voodoo? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It seemed out of the blue to me, the pain. It certainly wasn't, but it did in the moment. I was like, I just woke up with this, but like, no, it was so eye-opening in that moment. And so I'm curious, like you said that you were familiar with the Body Keeps the Score and like you had heard of all of that. So was this something that you had learned early on as an adult, or were you raised in this way? Like, what was your first
No,
encounter?
no, not at all. I mean, I learned it as an adult, and I learned it after the thing about like trauma, I think it like we like it's a lot more common now for people to like like explore what that is. But I didn't know that I had experienced any trauma until one day we did the Marie Kondo whatever, the tidying up thing, and we brought all of our shit or stuff into the room and set it in the living room floor. And I was and like we could see every item in our house basically. Like that's how we dealt with, and we went through the different sections like she recommends. But it was literally like we're getting all of this stuff out and clearing it out, and it just hit me like a wave. like these feelings, and that was just debilitated. And that's why I ended up doing the EMDR stuff, was because that trauma came back to me like so fast, and I didn't even know it was there. And it was holding me back in so many ways that I couldn't even explain. And so no, I had no idea until I was an adult, until I was about to be a dad, like a year out from that. And it was it was trippy, you know. Um, but yeah, I had never experienced that sort of like debilitation, you know, and it's hard to even explain. But yeah, that was the moment where I knew, like, okay, I can't logic my way out of this. I can't think my way out of this. Something is here. It is stopping me. It's in my body. I have to do something else. Um, and that was really where it started, I guess. I've never thought about that, but that's the place for sure.
Yeah, when you have that experience, it changes you because you all of a sudden realize how powerless you are to this part of your brain that has locked some little box up somewhere.
Yeah.
And, I said like the logic, you try to logic your way out. Um, but I've dealt with panic attacks since I was 9, and there is a point where logic just is gone. It is out the
Yeah.
window. I'm sitting here watching Gilmore Girls, but my body is fighting a bear somewhere. Like
Yeah.
there is no logical reason for it. So it just goes away. And
Yeah.
so it is so these tools are so important. And they also make me think about how you said something earlier about like you are moving into this space where you're like solving unsolvable things or mysteries for
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
And we mentioned your motivation coach. So I wonder if there's a link here between just this mindset that there is a solvable thing that is often not the first inclination for us to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you find similarities there in your mindset?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that people, like, even I could probably ask you this. You're like, that you're meant for more, right? Like, that you have that feeling innately. And that you that there's things that you should be doing, but a lot of times, maybe sometimes you don't do them and you can't really explain why, right? Maybe it's just like, and you try to like logically explain it, but that there's probably a reason there that you can't see. And I think that's where that path starts, is like, what I talk about is being more and doing more and having more. And like, everybody wants those things. Everybody looks at that and says, okay, yeah, for sure, I want that. But there's this mysterious problem that's in the way that I can't even see. And so that's as far as like my vision for that in my mindset, and what I work with people is like, truthfully, Brittany, a lot of times, when I'm doing this work with people, it is not it's not something that they will even like acknowledge, like, because it's so mysterious, they won't even be able to call it out and say, "Oh, Chris, help me with this." Because what happens is is like, things just get better, they start taking more action, the action is more aligned in where they want to go, and things just start rolling. And this is what I noticed in my own life. It's like, I can't even tell you what was in the way. Like, I could tell you stories about past or whatever that I think might be in the way, but I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So like, what I've this may feel insensitive, but what I feel like sometimes is like, what actually happened is like mildly interesting to me. I want to know how it's impacting you now. Like, what are you not doing that you should be doing? It doesn't really matter like what your story is of like, what this is why it happened, or this is why I'm doing this. Like, maybe it is, but maybe it's not, because that was a long time ago and you're still not doing the thing, right? So like, that's in my life, that's how I look at it for me. And it comes back to that: be more, do more, have more. So the be more is in alignment with the idea of identity, right? So like, we need to step in to the person. Like, there's two versions of you. There's the version of you who keeps like doing the things that aren't helping you get your goals and aren't progressing you forward. And then the other version is the version who doesn't fall into those traps and always does the things that moves them forward. And so what does it look like to step into that version of you who always does the thing. It doesn't fall into the same traps over and over again. What does it look like to step into that version? So that's the first part, is like we step into that identity. And I know you're familiar with this framework, probably a lot of people are, but like the that's the being. And then the do is that when we step into that person, then we can do the things that that person does instead of the things that that person wouldn't do. And then we also don't do the things that that person wouldn't do. And then we get to have the things that that person has, and that person is the version of you who just does the thing. Yeah, so that's my mentality around all of it and how I move people forward. But again, sometimes the problem is so mysterious that it doesn't feel like anything's being solved. It's just like, oh, things are just better and I'm able to step into my power every day. That's cool, you know.
Amazing. That is, um, I'm reminded of the Marie Forleo. I haven't read this book yet, but it's called Everything is Figure Outable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what it's making me think of, is that you have developed a mindset of like, it is a mystery, but that doesn't mean that it's going to stay a mystery.
Mm. Mhm.
And that mentality, I can only imagine, supersedes the business world and your, and all of the work that you're doing, which is incredible, but that is like a life value. Do
Yeah.
you find that you have like life values or life mottos that you kind of
Mhm.
fall back on?
Something that I say over and over again is just that I'm here to get better. And so like that goes into everything. So like if I'm out walking with my son and we're holding hands walking around the lake, I'm here to get better. If I'm, playing a game with my wife, I'm here to get better. If I'm at jujitsu, I'm here to get better. If I'm at the gym, I'm here to get better. If I'm sitting down at my work, I'm here to get better. Like that is truly the overall purpose and what I keep like pointing myself back to. And the truth is, some weeks I won't be able to do that. Like I won't be able to point myself back to it. I'll forget my own tools and my own path and my own ability to turn it around,
Mhm.
right? And that's just the truth. And so I I think it's something important for people to understand that like it's a constant returning to that set point. Like that if you're truly like committed to getting better, whatever that looks like, and you're on a path of growth, you have to continue to turn yourself back to that. It isn't like this is a funny story. I think maybe we've even talked about this before. When I did that therapy journey with the EMDR, I got to the end of it, and I was like, I was feeling great. So, oh man, this is great. Like, I feel like not all these stories are still there, but they don't bother me anymore like they used to. It's crazy. And I remember, like, my therapist was really like, I honestly, I feel like you've like kind of gotten to a point where you can handle this on your own. And she was like, how do you feel about that? I was like, great. I feel great about that. And I went home and I emailed her and I said, hey, can you like email me some sort of document saying that I'm like done with therapy or something? Because that would be great. And she totally did. Like I have a certificate that basically says I'm done with therapy, which is great to know. But that it's that mentality, I think, that I didn't know, I didn't even know at the time, even I feel like such a child. I was 30 years old, but it felt like that's also wild to think about. I was 30 years old before I realized that these massive things were blocking me. Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot when we realize that we have spent the vast majority of our life fighting uphill for something, and we didn't even realize what we were fighting or why we were fighting it. And often it's not even our stuff. It's
Yeah,
picked up.
totally. Yeah, man, the ancestral part of it too is like such a true thing. Like it sounds woo woo to think like, oh, ancestral trauma, but it's not though. It's real. It's scientific now. Like they've done studies around like Civil War descendants, and so the studies say that um descendants of people who were in the Civil War, descendants of people who were in the Civil War who died in battle, those descendants are more than twice as likely to have an untimely death than people whose ancestors didn't die in the Civil War. That's crazy. I mean, that's like, I know that's like one example, but it's so powerful to think about how it is. And the crazy thing is you can read that study in two ways. You could say, oh my gosh, this is my fate. This is what's destined for me because this happened. But the truth is, and this is also scientific, is you can reverse that and actually delete that data from your self. And then as you go forward, this is maybe where it gets a little more woo woo, is like now that stuff doesn't exist in your timeline going forward anymore, right? You just deleted that. It's awesome. So that's also just a big part of that work. But yeah, man, like, jeez, going through that. Um, yeah, yeah, it was wild. I don't even know where I was going with that now. That kind of hit me really hard.
Yeah, I have had similar experiences where I realize I've I mean, I just casually said I've been getting panic attacks since I was 9, but I now have a stepson who's 12, and I'm thinking about him, when I met him, he had just turned 10, and I'm thinking about him experiencing, I mean, the thoughts that I had at 9, which was I'm going to die right now, and
Mhm.
that's going to upset my family, and taking that, like, I mean, the thoughts that I was having at that time, and I look at him and he's like playing Mario Kart and has never worried about, and I'm like, I was like carrying the weight of the world in my brain at his age.
Yeah.
And so then, it becomes normal to you to have these experiences over time. And what you're saying about generational trauma is it's so proven that they have had people come into offices that are like all of a sudden getting just crippling nightmares about freezing to death or
Yeah.
burning or some specific thing. And they've done research that goes back to an ancestor who, at the age of 19, that happened to. Like, what?
Wild. Wild.
It's
It's incredible.
it's so scientific, and it's so funny to me that I do the same thing as you. I qualify it. This is where it gets more woo. But the funny thing is it's so bad. The Oprah did the book, It Didn't Start With You.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so backed now.
Yeah.
So it's wild.
And this is going to sound harsh, but I think the reason why people don't want to admit that is because they want to hold on to the struggle, and they become so, and this is why the identity piece is so powerful. It's like they want to hold on to that story so bad because if they don't, then who are they? And that is what I had to face. I mean, I had to face that. Like if I let go of these stories, then who am I really? And then you're faced with this whole new thing of like, oh shit, I can become anybody. Like I can become someone different. What does that mean? That's too scary. I don't know how to do that. And so it's that's one of the reasons why I feel like I have to qualify stuff sometimes because I don't want it to be dismissed. I want it's weird to do this work and like as a marketer, this it's like I'm always thinking about like how can I speak about this in a way that is sellable almost like is like that people actually are drawn to. And sometimes that is good and sometimes it's oversimplifying it and like um people won't actually get it because it feels like it's not it won't break past their wall, of protection. Um but I don't know. Yeah, that's definitely why one of the reasons why I do it. Yeah.
And so I'm curious about your decision so you have all of this knowledge now, and you had these personal experiences, and you have done what a lot of entrepreneurs do, which is there's kind of two tracks. There's you either have these experiences as an entrepreneur and they live there, and then you
Mhm.
continue on and do the work that you were doing. Or you start to do this with them and you integrate your experiences, your personal experience into your business.
Mhm.
Um, and so did you have a moment of like deciding that, or did it happen naturally? What was that like?
Um, it it sort of came from me kind of being over the marketing world, and wanting to like see if I could bring some of those skills that I learned as a marketer into this to like and build up other skills. Like so I've always been a fan of like skill acquisition of like what can I learn and like, reading, like taking courses, all that stuff has always been important to me. So is there like another way I could go? And so I mean, I did that same thing when I moved into the marketing space in the first place. Like I was a photographer for 13 years. And then after that, after our son was born, we just didn't want to be shooting weddings on the weekends every weekend. Like we wanted to spend time with him. So it was time to like do something else. So I had to explore like, okay, what's interesting to me? What can I learn skill wise to go pursue? And that's what turned me into in the marketing world. And I just went full fledged in that, started an agency and all that stuff. And that was the whole path. And then I worked with a lot of other people too. And after that, and kind of being a little bit just fried from the marketing space, that was really the impetus for, well, what can I do next? And what am I passionate about? And I've always been into like personal development and health and fitness. And I wanted a way to tie all that together. And that's where the idea of Get Better came from, is just like, I told Jen one day, I was like, I'm going to build an entire brand on one outcome. And that one outcome is get better. And so that's the path I'm on, is like, how can I just help people get better? And whatever that means to them. Russell does the like that, the origin story of like the one funnel away idea of like where he talks about like, oh, I wanted to do one funnel away, you're one funnel away from X, you're one funnel away from this and this and this. And then you realize like, no, you're just like, it's that people can fill that in on the backside, right? So that's kind of where my head was, not intentionally, but that's what ended up happening, is get better at the thing you want to get better at. But it all starts with that be do have scenario of like changing the identity, doing the things that person does, and then you get to have those outcomes. So
It sounds like it's really important to you to not only love what you're doing for your career, but also like have it serve you and your family. And as normal as that sounds to us as entrepreneurs, that is not the norm. Most
mhm,
people like their job is their job and they have to work around it versus the job working around you and your family unit and what you want to do. So
mhm,
where do you think that comes from for you, that desire to have it serve you?
mhm. I I've always been an entrepreneur. So like before before I joined Jen in the photography business, because she started it, before I joined that, I was working at Chick-fil-A. Like I literally, that's the only like that type of job it was all I'd ever done. And I will, that's not true. Actually, I also taught at a school as a music teacher, because my degree's in music education. So I taught at a school for like 6 months. And then right after that, we just went full time together in the wedding business. And that, but I had so many examples around me. I just pick up random stuff and start playing with on the desk. Talk about anxiety. So we I had so many examples around me of what like a truly free life can look like. I had so many friends who they were photographers, but they had this entrepreneurial mindset. And I didn't really grow up with that. I was fully intending on just going out, getting a job, and that's it. And then I experienced the other side of that, where like we can literally just not do anything for days at a time if we wanted to and still make a lot of money. That felt really good to me. And I didn't have to like answer to anybody. I just realized this heater's been on this whole time. That's probably going to be a lot better sound quality now. Um, that was really appealing to me. So I mean, that's kind of where it came from. And then it was even more intensified, of course, when we had our son. It became even more important, and we became acutely aware of like time. Um, but that's where it comes from, and it's just been always been a value of ours. Like I want to be in a place where we can work from anywhere. We're not tied to anywhere. And I've tried the other thing. It hasn't been that long ago that I tried that. And I hated it. I hated that being tied to a location. I thought I would love it. And eventually, like I did like the collaborative aspect, So I went and worked inside of a company to help them build up the back end tech of one of their brands. And and that was fun. And working with the people was fun. Nothing about any of that stuff. But it was immediately clear to me, like, this is not for me. Like, I am not going to do this. And that's, yeah, it just bucked up against that value. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of those, if you don't know that the things you value, those can even become mysterious problems, because you'll start to have all this friction. You'll start to like feel anxious, anxiety, like whatever. And you may not even know what's happening or why it's happening. Well, it's bucking up against a value that you haven't even defined yet. You know what I mean? And that was happening for me during that moment. So that's where it comes from, is just being in that world for so long and just not wanting to go back to anything else.
I had a similar experience. I had a few corporate jobs right out of college because it was default. You do the thing and then you do the
Yeah.
thing. And I vividly remember being at my desk. It was like 11:01, and someone she was the two cubicles ahead of me, and she stood up and took her lunchbox and walked. She ate lunch every day in her car because she wanted a break from the office. And it was 11:01 every single day. 11:01, she would stand
Yeah.
up and go. And I remember so clearly it being 11:01 on a Wednesday. And I was like, that will not be me. I will not do it. I was so close to just leaving that moment. But it is, there's something hardwired in entrepreneurs that you just physically can't have it. It's not like I prefer,
Yes.
cannot do it.
Yeah. It's an important distinction too, because it's like, I think there's a lot of people who would say, oh, like, oh, well, like, you'll do whatever you have to. Yeah, I will do whatever I have to to not have to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's absolutely true. Yeah, man, it's an important value. And I think it's important to know that in your work too, like to remind yourself of that. Like, oh, this is something I care about, and I really value this life. So, oh, I should probably send that DM. Oh, I should probably record that podcast. I should probably write that book, because if I don't, then I'm going against this value, and I'm always going to have this friction showing up in my life, and I may not even know why. It's because I've said this is what I wanted, and I'm directly going against that. It's like a violation of your own self, you know?
I love that you're saying that because it reminds me of um one time my coach, I had her say like Helen, Helen from
Oh
DI,
yeah,
she's
Helen, she's great.
amazing. Um that
Changed my life.
anxiety,
Yeah.
same. I mean,
Yeah.
just like the most humble, quietly powerful human you will ever meet.
Yeah.
And um she was talking about how my anxiety I had discounted my whole life because it was always irrational to me. Like it would just pop up and be like, I'd be like, I'm watching Gilmore Girls. I don't know what you're freaking out about, but you have no voice here, basically. Like,
Mhm.
go away. And she said anxiety starts from a place of there's something wrong, like a
Mhm.
mismatch, but it is, it grows into a place that is not healthy. But there is something, maybe maybe there's a subconscious thing that you're watching this thing and you actually should be building your business, but you're scared of being seen, and your body is picking up on that.
Mhm.
And it's so amazing to me that we have these very intelligent bodies that we have no user manual for, like
Yeah.
at all, until you do the work that you do. And sometimes you are 30 until that is the
Mhm.
reality is setting in that I have to figure this out.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It's okay. I mean, I feel like I, I, I can't remember where I read this first. I know Gary V talks about this a lot now, more recently. He talks about how, like, you have so much time. It's hard to tap into that, because that can go two ways. Like, you can be like, oh gosh, like, what a relief. I have so much time. Or you can look at it like, yep, I have so much time. Like, I know that this crippled me for so many years, and that sucks. I can look at that and I can acknowledge that that sucked. And I have so much time to build. But you have to stay in that place. You have to constantly redirect yourself back to that place, because you're right. Like there's something there. Like it's almost a signal. I actually say that a lot of like when emotions come up, it's a signal from the data that's inside of you. Might not be yours, might be something you perceived like from the news or whatever, like picked up from social media. Like who knows, man? It doesn't necessarily matter. It's just a signal that something is needs to be cleared. And so that's what's so brilliant, I think, about EFT and other things like that, like even breath work to some extent. It can help you move that stuff out of the way. And it's not like it's gone, like I said before, but it can move it out of the way just enough for that next inspired step to come through. And then you take that and then you're in the path of the person who does the thing, you know?
That, yes, I am. I had another coach talk about how sometimes you need to um, get the smoke out of the room to see what was actually on fire.
Oh, it's good. I
And
like that.
so it's like that is, you don't know if it's the toaster or the radiator or what it is. The room is just full of smoke. And so if it is just a testament to the way that you work with people. And I want to get into that because you are right now working on like the founding level of
Mhm.
this um, coaching program membership that you're launching. And so
Mhm.
that is really like the crux of what you're doing, right? You're getting people clarity enough to
Mhm.
take the very next step. Is that right?
Yeah, that's all there is. Like there is no like next 5 steps, next 12 steps. There is one step, like one thing at a time. That's something that I still struggle with myself. And I have a friend, his name's Dave Whitley. He used to say this. He was like, if you're struggling with something, that means you're holding on to it. And if you want to stop struggling, you just have to let it go. And I love that analogy and that visual. But that is, so I just need to let this go probably. But it's something that keeps popping up in my life of like, I have to just keep turning back to it, keep turning back to that next step, the next step, the next step. And it's something that I'm gonna come back, circle all this back around. But when we were in our photography business, and the way the photography industry works, usually, like especially back when we first started, it was all about connections. That's just kind of business in general, but like you get connected with individuals and then you get referrals in, right? So like that was our whole play. And I noticed that when we would kind of back off and just kind of rest back and not really create any content, not write any blog posts, not post anything on social media or whatever, like obviously things would slow down. And even if we wouldn't directly get an inquiry from connecting or going to a meeting or whatever, something would come in. And I noticed early on that like, oh, when we put energy out, it comes back to us. And it might not even look the way we thought it would, but it's going to come back to us. And so that's the idea of the inspired action piece is like, if we can just find that next step, then we take that and who knows what's going to happen next. I don't know, but I don't have to worry about that. I just need to take the next step because if I can take that one, then I'll take the next one, then I'll take the next one. But it's constant returning back to that presence that allows you to be here so that you can act. Um, and so that's really the work I do with people. And so, like on a one-on-one level, sometimes we'll do some sort of like protocol or whatever, like with the tapping. Sometimes we'll just breathe. Sometimes we won't do any of that, and I'll just listen and talk. And we'll like that's what coaching is. And I mean, I don't, I'm not tied to like a specific modality. It's just some things come up and there's tools that we can use for that. You know what I mean? I feel like Helen was really good at that. Like sometimes we would, like, I remember one time she like took me into the future. You know what I mean? Like we time traveled and it was like, dude, it was the most powerful thing. And just stuff like that. Like that is all geared, even the like conversational stuff is just geared to bring people back into their power and their presence and their purpose. It's constant redirection. And sometimes you just need someone to help point you back. And so that's the idea behind the Resilient Creative, which is the membership I'm putting together. The Resilient Creative was actually born out of a live event that I did back in 2013, where I got a bunch of people together and we went camping and I rented this sweet Mercedes Sprinter van, and we got everybody in there. I had someone in there like a personal chef making coffee and food for us. We go set and we do the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, and then came back and camped at the biggest cave in the world, and just sat around the campfire and shared ideas. And I thought in that moment, the vision behind that was like, well, I just want to hang out with people. I just want to hang out with my friends. I want to create a space where we can do that. And what ended up happening was like all these ideas sparked out of it, businesses and like connections and partnerships. And I was like, man, there is something to live events, first of all, but there's also something to just being around people who are cool and are like goal oriented, like there's something about that. And so that's where the resilient creative idea was originally formed, is just, can we step out? Can we have a place where we can step out of all the stuff that we have to do on a daily basis and return to the vision, return to our power and our presence and our purpose, and be around people who are committed to doing the same thing. So that's what the resilient creative is in membership form. Yeah, that's the vision.
I think that it is so cool when we get to see someone's full circle moment.
Yeah.
Um, because you started talking about how, things just this hit you after you saw your stuff, out, and you went on this whole journey to understand what it was. And now you're able to, and at that point it was a passion project, a deep interest. That often is the case for us as entrepreneurs because, we're somewhere else and we're doing the thing to make a living, and then we're using this to fuel our income and our life and the way that we're moving throughout the world. And now you have integrated this and are able to get it out to people based upon your immense knowledge of marketing and tech and live events and all these things that you have as a skill set. You're able to get this knowledge that you just acquired for so many years out.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see it like crystallize there.
Yes. Yeah. It's cool to know that it's like a returning. And even back then, I didn't know. I just knew, like, honestly, I was just in a place of pure uh I don't really care what anybody thinks. Luckily, that nothing was coming up to block me at that moment, and I just did it. And it's so funny to know that like that pure expression of what I like, what was inside of me, that like my true purpose here, like what I'm here to do. It was such like a pure expression of that, and I had no idea. And then I just like fell off the cliff, and all the blocks started coming up. I'm not good enough for this. I'm not smart enough for this. Who am I to even be doing this? Like all this stuff that we come up against anyway, these mysterious problems. And it took me a long time, like over 10 years now, to come back to that idea. Like I literally bought that domain over a decade ago. Um, resilientcreative.com. So it's trippy. But what I want is to help people not take a decade to get there, to stay in their purpose. Like how, like if I had learned back then, oh, all you need to do is redirect back, come back every day, then everything would have been different. But again, doesn't matter. It happened and it's in the time it was supposed to. So
So where can people get information on this? That you just dropped the URL that you had bought a year or
yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but tell us where they can get more info on it.
Yeah, that's it. Resilientcreative.com. And you'll see a page there. It's a video of me talking about the offer. There's a current founding members offer for Resilient Creative that gets you into the group for life. Like you can come in, and every week I do a weekly clearing. Every month I do a 2-day workshop. It's not meant to sell anything or upsell anything. You're in the group. And there's other ways that we can work one-on-one together, but that's not what that's for. It's more just to keep you in the power and presence of purpose. And then every quarter I bring in a group expert, and they're not selling anything either. They're just there to enrich you and bring more tools for you to use and keep it in your presence. But again, the group is really just a community, and what's born out of that cannot be overstated, right? It's like I was saying earlier, like when you get in the right room with people, and you're taking in the right things, and they're all in this goal oriented space, magic happens, man. And so I really believe that. And it's like the membership is like an extended live event that just we just stay in that energy together, for as long as you want to. But in addition to that, people will also get the 90 days of one-on-one coaching. So that's the offer that's on that page. You can read about it and check it out, see if it's for you.
Lovely. I'm so happy that um originally I reached out to you and I was like, I had seen some of your biohacking stuff, just you in an ice bath and you
Yeah.
doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu and stuff. And I'm so glad that we chatted and it went deeper than that, because there's so much that, the container of something like an ice bath or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that's great. Those are all have their place and they're wonderful on their own merit. But the mindset of like, I'm going to do better and be
Hmm.
better and get better, um, from a place that you came from is really the thing. That was the passion project. That was the thing that got you
Hmm.
to the place where you are now, where you have your son now watching you do stuff that you love and
Yeah.
is able to be with you all the time, because you're not, in a position where you're, out of the house all the time. So like all of these things come full circle. And I'm really just thankful that you came and shared that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a lot of fun. I mean, all of those things, like you said, it follows the same path, the same ideal of here to get better. And sometimes we need to get to uncomfortable places in order to do that. And that's where the ice bath comes in, the cold walks, jujitsu. It's all uncomfortable, but it helps you get better.
Yeah,
And that's why I do it.
lovely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate your time.
Cool, Brittany. Thank you. This is fun.